town of Lowell, or the city of Lowell, USGS topography, a flown topo. The one slightly above that is the topo that was produced by the city of Lowell with an on-the-ground topography. If you kind of match up the match line, you can see what those elevations are and where they overlay each other. The top one is the Doug Lee's Land Engineering Environmental Services of the same thing, and that also has the match line on it, so you can see what the numbers are. Unfortunately, it would take a lot of time to study that. Let me just summarize what those show. The numbers are actually relatively close together, despite the fact that they all use 3 different benchmark elevations. The town engineer used what is an assumed benchmark, meaning that they just took a spot, called that 100, and ran their points from that. Everything above 100 would be like 101, 102. Everything below that would be 99, etc. The town topo is on a different datum, and the Doug Lee's Land and Engineering Environmental Services is from the 1988 USGS benchmark on the Fletcher Bridge, which is considered a Class 1 benchmark. So that's really the best benchmark at all. They don't vary a heck of a lot from each other. They're actually very close, surprisingly. They do show that somewhere from 0.1 to 0.3 feet of pavement was added over to the area. 0.08 is 2 inches, so we're looking at 2 to 4 inches of pavement was added on the property. More importantly is, below that you have a larger sheet showing the subject building in yellow and a red line. That is the plan that I have here. And you can see the red line coming through this area. The elevation of the floodplain in this area on this side of Weber Street is at 99.4. So what we did was we carried that line using the town topo map to show you that this is the limitation of the floodplain in a 100-year event. Those elevations are not bad. They're not very far off from what the on-the-ground survey from Lee's Engineering did. But what it does show is that there's a boundary, and you can see a 100 contour here, which is above the floodplain. So essentially, that's acting as a dam in this area, so that the flood elevation doesn't get to the area that was paved. Despite the fact that part of that roadway is below that flood elevation, because of the dam, it is not part of the floodplain. The best plan to illustrate that is the one with the red line on it. I obviously should have brought my own tripod, but or else I should have tightened up this one. Could be an engineering problem. The plan from Land Engineering and Environmental Services also shows the floodplain on Weber Street on the upper side. And once again, there is an area of higher topography here that acts as a dam so that the floodplain does not get into the building and it does not get into the street area at all. So the surveys demonstrate that despite the fact that this is shown on the FEMA floodplain as being a flood area, it is not on a detailed survey. We have sent this information to FEMA. We are looking for a floodplain map change in this area, and that will take several months. But we have a letter of certification from the surveyor that this is not a floodplain area. We have the detailed survey, all of the data submitted to the commission, and we have this additional data that we have submitted to you over the last week.
Mr. Erickson, where does the map that you had just prior to that?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, that one. What is that one again? I don't see a legend on it.
This is from the city of Lowell topography.
What year?
I'm sorry, I don't know that offhand, but this is an aerial topography, is my understanding of it. The elevations match fairly accurately with the on-the-ground survey. Aerial topography is typically not as accurate as on-the-ground, but it doesn't differ considerably at all.
By aerial, do you mean from photography or directly measured from like LiDAR or something?
Photography, in aerial photography, they fly over, they take...
Right, but I mean, you're confident it's from photography, not from LiDAR?
Yes. No. No, it bears out pretty closely to the on-the-ground survey. I mean, it's not significantly off. There are some areas that are wooded where you would expect some, where they can't actually see what's going on, but it seems to be fairly accurate. I don't have much doubt with it, and the on-the-ground survey bears that out.
There's a number of spot elevations on this topographic map. Do you know how they got on there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
A number of spot elevations also on the city topo. Do you know how it is that they're listed on there?
Presumably, they were done during the aerial topography, but I couldn't say for sure.
All right. I guess I'm a little interested because the city topo map that I originally reviewed for this site did not look like this one. It showed a gradual slope of West Aldea from Middlesex Street all the way back towards the Black Brook. That was my original comment from the prior meetings, and even before you were here, is that the city topo did not match what was in fact out there. But looking at this does, because it shows the low area next to the CASTAR building. And I would agree with your characterization that at least they're close. Now, I note that your engineer has listed as elevations, there's anywhere from an inch to a half a foot difference in elevations, depending on which benchmark. An engineer would say it shouldn't matter, they should all be the same. No matter where they're starting from, the benchmark is the benchmark. But I think when push comes to shove, at least for me, I agree, and this is what I was asking for at the last meeting, to show me where the Black Brook from that culvert on Weber Street at, where it's 101.7 above it, and then, 99.4 below it?
Yes.
All right, 99.4, to show me an elevation above 99.4 that isolates the rest of West Aldea Street, and I'm seeing it on this.
Yes.
From looking at the plans that were submitted last week, you couldn't see that because there was some in that lower middle section, there was some 99.2s, which were below, and there was no line showing that there was a higher section, so.
No, we spent a great deal of time going over this and ensuring that it was more demonstrative of where the break is. I agree, the information we submitted before
I'm
did
seeing
not
it
provide
now.
that.
I'm seeing it now, and I'm going to open this up for the rest of the commission, obviously, for their questions. But I'm satisfied that at least you've got a situation here where even though part of the area that was paved is in fact below the 100-year floodplain, that it is isolated and it would not flood in the 100-year event. Yeah, it may flood if it goes over that, but that's not, that's the bathtub effect. That's not.
Then we're getting into a 500-year floodplain.
Right. That's not what we're looking at here.
But for the 100-year floodplain, the 1% chance of occurring, There is a break in there, and the water does not get over there. That doesn't mean we don't get ponding over here. We do. It's a puddle, but it's not land subject to flooding.
All right. Well, Commissioner Varnum?
Well, it's been a great improvement in the condition of Aldea Street, and I'm happy to know that it hasn't affected the resource.
Commissioner Chalupka? Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Mellon?
Looking at this map that you have, this aerial, any aerial photography would require the surveyor to have ground control that they could see from the air.
Absolutely.
That way they can confirm what they have taken from the air to what's actually on the ground. And
They have
these
the ground
spot
control.
elevations I just highlighted all the spot elevations that I could see, and they all fall within, you know, your reasonable explanation. So I have no problem, you know, accepting what you said.
When they have a topo this large, they do verify quite a number of spots on the ground. I couldn't give you the statistics or the numbers on it, but yeah,
Well,
you're
it's all up to
absolutely
the
right.
surveyor and what the, you know, what the job requires. I'm a professional land surveyor,
Yeah.
so
Then you probably know more than I do about this.
I've done this stuff all over the city of Lowell and all over the state of Massachusetts in my career.
Then you're probably more qualified than I am.
But thank you for your presentation.
I just want to make a comment. I wish that, I mean, this is a situation that's been going on now for probably a year and several months. And I appreciate that you finally come in and straighten it out. I know there was some issues with the contractor originally. And, you know, we're acting under the firm maps that show this to be a floodplain.
Yes.
And certainly, the city topography shows it to be below the 100-year elevation, both at the Weber Street culvert and below it. You know, given the evidence that was presented before the commission and prior meetings prior to you being here, I mean, there was at that time, you know, there was clear evidence that there was a potential violation here. We were requesting, you know, right from the onset, an NOI or some filing and showing us demonstratively, you know, what was done. It's not that, you know, this is a floodplain issue. Those are easy to solve. It's just you either create compensation or remove the fill. There's no other jurisdictional area out there. What the problem was is we didn't know what the final result was, and we've been, you know, begging
Based on
for
the
it.
information that you had, the commission's action was a fair call.
Yeah, I mean,
This
we've
is
been-
shown as a FEMA floodplain, despite
Yeah.
the fact that there are errors there, and it's not a FEMA floodplain.
You know,
So
unfortunately, it took this long to get to this position. What I would,
we were called in probably sometime around December, and due to the snows, it was difficult to get the survey done, because obviously with, you know, huge piles of snow on the side, you can't reach some of the ground points that you need. So there was some delay in the survey, but I don't know the reasoning for the delay in acting on it before that. But our client has asked us to resolve it, and we've tried to do the best we could.
now, the next question, is there any further proposed paving work being planned or anticipated for West
Sometime
Aldea?
in the future, my client proposes to do some work on his property, but not at this point in time. But in the future, we do propose to be putting together a notice of intent in the filing for some work on that property. We don't know the extent of it at this point, and we don't know when that will be. It may be a year from now. It may be 6 months from now.
From what I've heard, at least tonight, and from the commission, and I would like to limit it simply to this project alone, since we don't have, as a commission, the authority to go back and say, you know, the firm maps are incorrect. The firm maps still show this as floodplain. And we're going to continue to treat this as floodplain for any other work proposed going forward from now, but at least for what has been done for the, you know, the repaving and regrading of West Aldea Street that was done back in November of 2009, I believe. And at least from what I'm hearing from the commission, I suppose we should entertain a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability. I'm assuming that's what you're requesting? So
Yes.
For the work that's already been completed.
We are looking for a negative determination. I think you're absolutely right, though. It's the commission's obligation to work off the existing firm maps. We have, as I noted, we've filed with FEMA to change these maps in this area, and that may be happening in the future. The government moves a little bit slowly, so I'm not sure when that will be.
All right, do I have a motion?
I move to issue a negative determination on this project.
And a second? Second. All right, by Commissioner Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. We can move on since we've...
Chairman, would you like to sign those determinations right now or at the end of the meeting?
Can you say that again?
Would you like to sign the determination form now or at the end of the meeting?
We'll do it at the end. Moving on, we have two enforcement orders. I'd like to treat those together since they're substantially the same issue. One is Sutton Village Estates Condominium Association, care of Charles Perry, the president. Project location is Roper Street, and it was snow plowing and placement of snow in a jurisdictional wetland. The next item is also an enforcement order for Southwood Group LLC, care of Majdi Tuadordis. Project location, or the work was at 1272 Lawrence Street, and likewise was snow plowing and placement of snow in a jurisdictional wetland. Mr. Thomas, could you please inform the commission as to what these orders were initiated and what has happened since?
Yeah, this is an issue that first came to my attention in late January or early February. I had received information that there had been snow plowed into a jurisdictional resource area, in particular a river. I followed up and subsequently determined that there had been snow put in what I believe is a jurisdictional area. There is some disagreement between myself and some of the parties who are issued enforcement. So there is some contention that it's a drainage ditch, but per the Mass DEP snow storage guidelines, a drainage ditch is also an inappropriate place to put snow, especially if it has the potential to cause a flooding hazard, which I determined that this could. So per the recommendation of Mass DEP and following up with the usual treatment of these situations through the Department of Planning and Development, I started informally with the property owners. Now, if this works, look at that. Okay, I put together a PowerPoint, very simple to show you what was happening when I found it and what it looks like after enforcement. So this area is actually in the Marshall Brook area. If you look between Burton Street and Rockingham Street, there's a thin blue line. It's a little hard to see, but right below Roper Street, you can see it to the left of Roper Street. So the Sutton Village condominiums are the large buildings up along that, the Roper Street, and the Magni Tuadros' properties along Lawrence Street at the outfall of that. And at the very bottom of this map, you can see the wetlands, the little swamp sign is the wetlands there. So it flows out, and this actually flows into Marshall Brook and into the Concord River within about a mile or less. So this was one of the sites. There were actually 3 sites, but one of the violations was corrected before it went to a full enforcement order. That was at 1250 Lawrence Street. On the left there, you can see the building at 1250 where they plowed the snow. And you can't actually see the resource area because it's entirely covered there, but those trees are along the banks of the waterway there. This is at 1272 Lawrence Street. This is at Mr. Tawadros' property. To the left there, it is the same channel. You can see the snow from the parking lot was plowed all the way across. And if we come back to this picture, you can see that it came in from both sides and entirely choked the waterway. And this is at the Sutton Village condominiums again, that you can see is plowed from both sides from the parking lot into the area. So again, I started out informally with the parties involved. I did get compliance from 1250 Lawrence Street before I went to enforcement. Then after the enforcement orders, we had compliance from the other two. Now this is a little hard to understand because I didn't have the best picture, but this is the same snowbank that was on the original picture for 1250 Lawrence Street. And what this shows is I asked them to make sure that they cut as much snow back as possible and to cut a channel for the water to pass. My concern was that the corrective action could actually be worse than the violation. The violation, for the most part, was pushing clean snow into that and choking the waterway and causing a flooding hazard. Although, again, plowing in a parking lot, you're also going to take up road salts, oils, and other things and put them there. But my worry was in trying to correct this, that they would go in and scoop it all out and actually, start scooping out the bottom of the waterway. If it's a drainage ditch, as some contend, that's not such a big deal. If it's a wetland and river, as I contend, that would be a further and potentially more troublesome violation. So I said to cut a passage for the water and remove as much snow from the bank as possible. This is the work at 1250 Lawrence Street. This is just the other day, actually this is on Monday, the situation you can see on 1250 Lawrence Street on the left, 1272 on the right. After both took corrective action, you can see the water flowing. It's actually a fairly significant amount of water. And this is Sutton Village after the corrective action, again, the same water flow. So I'll take any questions that the commissioners may have about this.
What are these listed on the city topo as, these areas?
These are listed as a hydro line on the city topographic map, which is an older classification. I actually did a little bit of historical research to try and determine the history of this, and that is what I use for my contention as to this being a brook. This is what used to be called Wigginville. There was a manufacturing facility out there operated by Mr. Wiggin. This, in the very back there, if you see, you can see a little bit of a hill. That's Shed Park. And through conversations with the engineering department, I determined, well, they helped me determine, because I didn't know, that most of the waterways in Shed Park, including a small pond, drain through this area. And when we look back at the Wigginville plans that they have from the 1930s, what it looks like is that it's labeled as a brook. And it looks like this was actually culverted through a public works project for the WPA in the 30s, and then opened back up when they built the condominiums. And so the condo association, or whoever, the developer who built the condos, did a service to the area and to the waterway by opening it up. But because it was in a culvert, and because of other evidence that I haven't seen but has been referred to, there's some belief that this, again, is just a drainage way. For the issue of the placement of snow, it's not an appropriate place either way, and it's worthy of enforcement due to the the sand, oils, other solids that would be washing down here into Marshall Brook, into the Concord River, and also the potential for flooding backing up in this area. It's all very low-lying all around here. Sorry, go ahead.
That hill would most likely be Fort Hill,
Yes.
and that would be across the Concord River from this site. I doubt that would have any impact. Lawrence Street's on the other side of the Concord River.
I may have the wrong park, but this is the park that has the cemetery there. As you drive down Lawrence Street, you cross the Concord River, there's a cemetery on your left, and you keep going, this area is a little further down your left.
That's,
I may have mentioned the wrong park, excuse me.
Morton Street
I don't know that part.
goes into the property on the other side of the railroad tracks. They just rebuilt the Morton Street Bridge in the past couple of years.
How far down, is this on the other side of the, how far down Lawrence Street is this?
So if we go back, forgive me for this, I'm going to click back rather quickly to the first slide. Here's the site You can see the railroad tracks in the back.
Oh, okay, yep, okay, I see, yep, no, I know where you are now.
You
All
see
right,
where
yeah,
Ro-
you're right, you're on,
see where
yep,
Roper
you're
S-
on the right side of
Yeah,
it.
it's
Roper
hard be-
Street
Okay.
makes a sharp
Yeah,
right
no,
turn.
I've got it. I was thinking down by the old
Centennial Island.
canal.
Yeah, it's confusing because this, I don't, for me at least, I don't consider that cemetery a part of Shed Park. And so it took a little while for me to understand how the water system worked. Again, part of the complexity of of what was happening in this area.
It's called Donahue or Donovan, on the overall GIS for the city, where it says location of violations. Well, above that, that white area is part of another piece of property that goes into Shed Park and eventually goes into Fort Hill. And that water comes out of the ground, almost like an artesian spring, and then runs on the surface to where you see the blue line where Roper Street makes a turn. It actually goes underneath the railroad tracks in a culvert.
It looks like it looks like these are functioning again.
Yes, I believe so.
All right.
Were there any fines issued or anything like that in the process of the enforcement order?
Well, we
I
would,
had, no, sorry, go ahead.
we would have to ratify them first and then issue a fine, which we haven't done yet.
I think there's some, it's worth discussion. There are differing opinions as to how fines would be issued through the commission. The ordinance does give the ability to fine, and I indicated that very clearly in the enforcement order. The actual issuance of a fine, it didn't get to I didn't actually get to issuing a fine because after the enforcement orders, then we received compliance.
Now, there was a discussion between you, Craig, and the president of Sutton Village as to whether this was a wetland or it wasn't a wetland.
Yes, it's the
Has
contention.
that been resolved? Do they know they actually have a wetland?
That has not been resolved. It is the contention of the Sutton Village Condo Association that this is not a jurisdictional resource area, that this is in fact a drainage ditch. They said that they had, when they first built the condominiums, they had a wetland scientist, I believe, a licensed professional do a survey of the area for them who gave them information that indicated it wasn't. I requested that information, I have not seen it, and I told them that based on my research, I believe it very clearly to be a jurisdictional area, and I'll operate under that assumption unless I see information otherwise. What I did say, though, for the purpose of enforcement, is that whether that question can wait a little bit longer. The worry with flooding, the worry really is flooding and the transmission of any pollutants down into the Concord River. So this needs to get sorted out quickly, and then we can work to come up with a snow placement strategy to determine what the exact nature of the waterway is. But yes, I did have those several conversations with the president of that association.
If I understand what you said correctly, they haven't provided any documentation that they received back when they were told that it wasn't a wetland?
No, I have not received any information from them. I did request that, but to be fair to them, I did say I don't need to see that immediately. What's more important is that the situation is corrected, and then we can have that conversation at a later date.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I think perhaps, Craig, if you check the files, I seem to recall that this project, when it was constructed, had an order of conditions. I remember going out there.
Yeah, I did not check. For the purposes of the delineation in the future, that will be important. But my concern was the more immediate danger of flooding and other pollutants making their way into the water system.
All right, as far as the Sutton Village Estates condominium at Roper Street, pointedly, I'll open that up, at least for discussion. at least I think it's appropriate that that enforcement order be ratified by the commission. The work having been done, we then can thereafter lift it, but at least for now, we should ratify it. The same with the Southwood Group at 1272. Now, we can leave these as standing orders, or we can ratify them. There seems to be some contention as to whether or not there is a jurisdictional wetland with the landowners or the property managers. I think it would be incumbent upon them to discuss that, at least and to come in here and present their opinion as to why they feel otherwise. It seems clear to me, from what I've seen, they are functioning drainage ditches. They were difficult to see. When I drove by to look at these, they were difficult to see. There was water flowing in them at the time, but as to whether or not what's under them, what's around them, it's right now there's too much snow on the ground, and you know, I'd be interested to know what it is that their position is, that these are not functioning, jurisdictional wetland features. So, at this point in time, I think the enforcement orders, at least as I've been convinced, were validly issued, and that their compliance was required by the appropriate parties here. So, at least as far as, we'll take them one at a time. The Sutton Village Estates condominium enforcement order regarding the placement of snow in the along the Roper Street and the jurisdictional wetland feature. I don't know whether it should be described as, quote, a drainage ditch, a less than perennial stream. I don't know at this point in time what it is, so, but it seems clear to me that it's a functioning wetland feature, and it does directly flow into the Concord River watershed. So, as far as that goes, to me, I'm satisfied that it is a jurisdictional wetland feature. So, and that placement of snow in the feature is in violation of both the City of Lowell code and ordinance and ongoing DEP regulations. So, if I have a motion to ratify the enforcement order as was issued on February 15th of this year.
So moved.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Likewise, the same discussion, at least the same comment from myself regarding 1272 Lawrence Street, and that's the Southwood Group LLC. Do I have a motion to ratify the enforcement order that was issued on February 25th, 2011?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Now, I mean, at this time, I'm reluctant to lift the enforcement orders and just would rather leave them in place as ongoing enforcement orders. The proponent can come before, or the proponent, the affected landowners can come before us at the appropriate time, and they can, there's no fines being levied at this point in time. There's no motion to do that right now. But if they feel that the continuing enforcement orders are inappropriate, they can come before us and discuss it and present their side of the fact, but there's no one here right now for either party. So I'm of the mindset to leave these in place.
Yeah, Chairman, if I may, I discussed this issue with Mass DEP. I know this commission has more experience with enforcement orders than I do since I started working here, but their feedback was to issue the enforcement order for the work that was done and to not lift them or rescind them unless they were issued in error, but instead if you felt that the corrective action had satisfied the protection of the resource area, to issue a letter to them saying that the work done did not make the situation worse, and in fact corrected, in this one instance, the work that was put under enforcement to begin with. Again, any and all of these options are at the will of the commission, but that was the direction from the DEP about how to move forward with this.
Is that something for the DEP's file?
No, that's something actually for the property owners, so that they have the enforcement order, but also a letter saying that corrective action was taken.
We can entertain a motion, if appropriate, that we're satisfied that the work was done in accordance with the enforcement order. I mean, I'd be more than willing to entertain a motion to do that, but nothing beyond that until the proponents come in here and discuss this.
No, that's exactly what I'm proposing, but again, this is at the will of the commission. I would like to provide something to them if possible, seeing that they did follow through, it did take an enforcement order to make them do the correct work, but having that issued, they then did go ahead and resolve the issue.
All right. I'll open it up for discussion. Again, I feel that, if we're satisfied that the work has been done, pursuant to the order, I have no issue, or at least I have no problem sending back, just by way of motion. It can go through you, either by email or a letter from the commission that at least we're satisfied that the remedial work was done in accordance with the order that had issued. Is there any discussion on that?
I would move that these entities be notified that the work done was satisfactory, but that the enforcement order is still in place.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Varnum? Yea or nay?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore? Commissioner Mellon?
Yeah, this brook could run all year. I don't know if it does or not, because it comes out of the ground over and behind the railroad tracks.
Is that a yea or a nay?
We're
On the
voting.
motion.
I can't hear what's going on down that end.
Oh, all right, the motion was, to issue a statement to the landowners that the work was done in accordance with the enforcement order, but that the enforcement order stay in place.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. None opposed. And just by way of housekeeping, was that for both enforcement orders? Yes. Okay. Do we need to make a separate vote for that, or?
No, the motion I had from Louisa is to notify the entities involved.
All right.
So that should cover both.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, I did not get minutes in my packet, but we have minutes on the agenda.
Yeah, I tried to email them this week. Did everyone else receive them? Yes, no?
Those are the December 1st minutes. I haven't seen them, so I don't,
Yeah, again, I had pushed to get them done because I had put them on the
right,
agenda a couple times, but I did get them out late, so.
I unfortunately have not checked any emails today. I haven't been available for communications, so. If everyone's reviewed them, I mean, I personally would like to, well, give me a few minutes. We can move on, and I'll just peruse these. Do we have, moving on to other businesses, discussion of the commissioner's regulations? Or let's do the National Grid communication first. It's the February 25th letter from the National Grid. This is the Plain Street and Lowell connector interface that I believe the Highway Department's been doing a lot of work out there redesigning the light systems and the on-ramps and the exit ramps. And National Grid is indicating now that they have to move a 4-inch gas line.
Yes, that's what the communication.
Typically, and this, I mean, this is an informal letter to us. I mean, they've provided about as much detail as we would get in an RDA. Typically, we deal with these in an RDA, and, you know, something like this, I'm assuming that they're trenching, installing the line and backfilling. It looks like that's what they're doing right from their letter. It looks like a fairly, you know, cut and dry, very quick process that they're doing with very minimal and no effects whatsoever to the jurisdictional area. It's all within the paved area of the project. I mean, typically, we get this in an RDA, issue a -3, and we move on. I mean, we have a long history of seeing very similar projects to this. I don't know as if, you know, given the highly industrial nature and the paved site, the River Meadow Brook, or the, what is it, the Middlesex Canal that's nearby is you know, fairly well defined within its banks. So
Yeah, I provided the letter in part to draw your attention to the second paragraph. It says, "The proposed activities meet the intent of normal maintenance of an existing facility used in the service of providing gas to the public, since the work will not substantially change or enlarge the line." And that was the sense that I got after I reviewed this. That's why I sent it to you and what you had said, Chairman, about how these are typically handled. I think this may be a departure from past work or past submissions. But again, the contention here is that it actually falls within one of the few exceptions to work in a resource area in the buffer zone.
I'm not sure I agree with Chet, their characterization in paragraph 2, because in paragraph 1, it seems to me that they're moving it. And that's not routine maintenance, that's moving it. You know, I mean, we typically, you know, as I said, we typically see these come before us in RDAs. You know, they're very easy to deal with. The other problem here is they haven't provided us with a map. They haven't provided us with any plan. I'm sure they have engineering regarding this. They probably have multiple pages of engineering and plans regarding this, but they haven't provided us with anything. You know, it's before us as an informal letter. I, for one, don't have enough information in front of me to say, yes, I agree with them that they're exempt because it's a routine maintenance thing. But their characterization that it's exempt seems to be in conflict with what they've written in paragraph 1, that they're moving the line. So, you know, let them show us what they're doing. And that's, the formal way of doing that is through an RDA. I am going to open it up for discussion. Maybe I'm missing something here, but
In paragraph 2, the last sentence, they mention that the transportation bond bill, Mass DOT bridge projects and associated work are not subject to the act. I'm not familiar with that particular.
we've had that before with the Hunts Falls Bridge at the end of Rogers Street, or, yeah, Nesmith Street. But is National Grid the Mass DOT? I mean, this is, the National Grid, as far as I know, is not the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. The Mass DOT may be exempt, but I don't know as if National Grid is.
Well, I'm assuming they're considering themselves associated work.
Well, do we have any, did they provide us with any plans on this? I mean, I'm just, you know, this, we've been all over the roadmap on this. We've had, the Mass DOT has filed for bridge work modifications. We've had, you know, RDAs. They've not filed in some instances, you know, claiming this exemption. So, you know, you know, this is a project that was before us, and there is an order of conditions out there for this particular area. So, you know, this did come before us a number of years ago for this reworking of this sector. So, I mean, I'm a little, I guess I'm a little in the dark as to why they feel now that they're not required to file when they have in the past. They filed an RDA.
This is the only communication I've received about this. I haven't followed it up. I wanted to bring it to your attention to see your feelings about their contention of being exempt. I do have a little bit of background about where the project stands. There are probably more plans that were submitted to the engineering department. I know National Grid has worked with engineering to move this project forward, and so if it's the commission's wish, I can investigate what the engineering department may or may not have, but I will tell you that for a variety of reasons, as far as I can tell, the engineering department is holding this project at the moment and not letting it proceed. So this has not started, nor will it start in the very near future, as far as I can tell.
Just the gas line or the redesign of the whole interchange?
I think the whole interchange is underway and or nearing completion. This is, I think, this is a preliminary step because they need to move the gas line to then complete the interchange as it's newly proposed. So this is, again, moving the physical underground infrastructure to then rework some of the roadway.
And
So there's a precursor to that work.
in the engineering department, the city of Lowell has issued a stop work order?
It's not a stop work order. Their regulations don't work the same way, and if the city engineer is watching this right now, I'm sure she's not going to be particularly happy with my characterization of this, but any work that cuts into a street needs a street opening permit. If you build a new house and need to connect your sewer line or your gas line to the main in the street, you need a street opening permit. And that is what National Grid applied for this work that has not been issued. It's not delinquent in any way. They're not under enforcement in any way. It simply hasn't been issued because my understanding is National Grid hasn't met certain obligations as far as what needs to be submitted, potentially, or something about the information that the engineering department has. It's unclear to me exactly where that stands, but I know they've applied for a street opening permit and have not received one.
how do we want to accept this or proceed with this, if any, as far as the commission goes? I mean, open it up for discussion. I mean, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here, because something like this, even without seeing the plans, is typically dealt with, at least, you know, at least under a -3 determination on an RDA filing. But I, for one, would like, that's not always the case. And I, for one, would like to see some engineered plans as to what their, you know, what their proposed work is. You know, I see paragraph 2 claiming an exemption here, but I'm not entirely sure that they get to enjoy that exemption, considering, you know, considering that this commission has had involvement with this particular location prior to this evening. So, you know, I'm not, you know, National Grid is not the DOT. You know, I don't know exactly where, you know, they're proposing to do the work, and even if they're claiming an exemption, they still, and correct me if I'm wrong, they still have to meet certain performance standards. They just can't, you know, dump a tractor in a resource area. They still have to meet certain performance standards to proceed with their work.
It's a little tricky, and I reviewed the exemptions when I received this, and the performance standards are, again, deal a little bit with what they list here as will not substantially change or enlarge the line, but there's a little firmer language both in the Wetlands Protection Act, which I actually have here, I can look at this quickly, and the city ordinance. Give me 1 second, I'll try and find the applicable language here.
I mean, regardless of the specifics of the language, we could just ask that they come back with an RDA, correct?
The commission could. If it's the commission's feeling that this does not meet the standard of an exemption, then some sort of filing would be required. Would you like the language? I did find it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the language would be nice. I think for me, I don't have enough information to know, you know, they're characterizing their work in a one-paragraph statement that, you know, that they're indicating that they're going to be moving a 4-inch or a 6-inch gas line in a resource area. You know, National Grid in the same watershed has been before us on NOIs for moving gas lines. So you know, and inserting sleeves within existing gas lines, you know, with work that barely impacted the resource area, if at all. So I'm a little curious as to their characterization here. I understand that it's, you know, that it's a bridge project, but I'm not too sure how their work relates to this, other than being, you know, in the same proximity. And also considering that the DOT hasn't even perhaps stepped foot on the site yet. So I'm a little curious as to the characterization here. And also the fact that, you know, the city engineering department has failed to issue them a permit to do this, you know, at least to cut into the pavement yet.
Again, that's not directly related to this communication, but for the purposes of understanding the timeline for the project.
All right, what's the specific language?
The important language is the first part of 1002, 1002 activities subject to regulation, and then subsection A, part 2, activities conducted to maintain, repair, or replace, but not substantially change or enlarge an existing and lawfully located structure or facility used in the service of the public and used to provide electric, gas, water, telephone, telegraph, and other communications services, provided said work utilizes the best practical measures to avoid or minimize impacts to wetland resource areas outside the footprint of said structure or facility. A project proponent claiming that work to remove fill dredge or alter an area specified in the regulations does not require the filing of a notice intent has the burden of establishing that the work is not subject to regulation.
Exactly, and that, to me, says they're required to file an RDA. From what I understand from your reading, is they're not, we're not talking about an NOI here. We're talking just about whether or not they've provided us with enough information to satisfy the burden that they're not required to file a notice of intent. And the proper procedure to do that is to file an RDA, not to just send in a letter saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and, that's it. This is here before us informally. It's not here before us formally. They have the burden of satisfying that they're an exempt project. And they haven't brought before us any evidence to support their position yet. I think it's incumbent upon them to do so, or they risk getting an enforcement order.
Say they're gonna replace a 4-inch line with a 6-inch line, but they don't say how long. It could be 100 feet, or it could be 30 feet. But in their letter, it doesn't say what the length is. It's only that the pipe, as it stands today, interferes with the location of a new foundation for a bridge job.
Right, it also doesn't specify
They also say
the offset.
they did a desktop analysis if there are any catch basins in the area. Well, they should know that there are catch basins in the area, and they should know exactly where they are, so they can protect the resource area with debris from falling into the catch basin, like they do on the Broadway Bridge. So I agree with the chairman, but I don't see enough information to let them go ahead and do what they want to do.
I'd agree. Information about the length and whether or not, is all the work contained within this one 3 to 4 foot wide trench, or is it that small an offset, or is there more scope involved?
Again, I touched base informally with the engineering department, and I didn't get specifics on the trench that they are proposing, but it is fairly substantial.
I appreciate you reading in, 310 CMR and the appropriate subsections. What's that, 10.2, 10.022A2. But again, from what you've read into the record, it indicates to me that National Grid still needs to satisfy their burden that they're exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act and exempt from filing a notice of intent. I'm getting at least a sense from some of the members of the commission that they haven't done that, and what concerns me more is their method of providing what information they've provided doesn't meet the standards of formality and procedure for getting it before us. They're claiming they don't need to file an NOI, but in order to get there, they have to satisfy a burden of proof, and they haven't done that yet. They haven't even produced anything yet for us to make a decision, let alone persuade, and persuade the commission that they are exempt from issuing, from requiring to file an NOI. The proper procedure to do that, as far as I am aware, is for them to file an RDA. It's a request for determination of applicability. Is there any further discussion? I don't really think we need to make a motion. I think you're getting a sense. I think we're getting at least a sense from several members of the commission. I for one think they need to file an RDA.
What I'm understanding from the commission is that I will communicate to National Grid your feeling that this requires some demonstration of that they meet the exemption stated here. Otherwise, this would be considered a jurisdictional activity.
Yes. Is there any further comments?
Can we request to see a plan either way? Like, to see this work in the context of the work that they brought before us before?
Yeah, again, I think that would be part of an RDA filing process, is they have to provide supporting evidence to, to support their claim that that their work is exempt under the act and under, Massachusetts general laws as a part of this accelerated bridge project thing, but they haven't, under the act says they have the burden of proof to persuade us that they're exempt. And they haven't done anything yet. All they've sent is a letter saying, with a brief outline as to what they plan to do, but that, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't meet their burden of proof. We're left guessing as to really what they're going to be doing out there. So, again, I'm hearing it, yeah, I think an engineered plan showing what their potential work and the impacts are called for in an RDA. So, any further comments? All right, you understand at least what I think what at least most of the commission members feel, that National Grid perhaps should be filing an RDA with supporting evidence.
Yeah, I'll communicate as best I can to National Grid the commission's feeling, and I will further investigate how exemptions may or may not be handled in other, for other utilities. I haven't seen a project claiming this exemption yet, but again, as you saw from some of my communications, there is support that Mass DEP provides with some of the more technical interpretations, so I can try and receive more information about how to view this in light of the fact that it seems to be moving back and forth between filings, exemptions, notice of intent, order of conditions.
Our guidelines are the Wetlands Protection Act, and the reading of the Wetlands Protection Act says that the operator has the burden of proof and persuasion to demonstrate to us that they're exempt and don't need to file an NOI. The proper procedure to do that under the Act is to file an RDA and to get it before us formally. Whether or not there's some other Massachusetts state law that the Mass Department of Transportation acts under, that may supersede the Wetland Protection Act, but I don't know that. If they want to demonstrate that to us, but again, the procedure to do that is an RDA, not just to send in a letter saying, outlining some skeleton of what they plan to do. We're left guessing and whatnot. I don't think they've satisfied any burden here. So, even under the Act, they haven't met their burden. So, all right, I think we can move on. The performance bond regulations, I for one would like more time to digest this. It was in your package. There's several emails and memos from other jurisdictions that have dealt with performance bonds and contracting with third-party experts and parties to assist the commission towards getting opinions and expert assistance. What I would like to do is, I for one would like more time to digest the information that's in this packet and have further discussions with it outside of the meeting. I don't think we need to, or at least, I'll open it up for discussion, but I for one would rather not spend the time doing this in front of a meeting, perhaps even forming a subcommittee to make recommendations to the commission. I mean, we could go round and round on this for hours on end and trying to hammer out some recommendations for the commission. What the various local cities and towns around us do seem to be, there's some commonality, but there's a lot of differences too. It would be good to see, and then, perhaps, even getting some opinions from the law department as to how that meshes in with our own ordinances and bylaws and the other relevant city departments that are responsible for handling these issues with respect to, the money and what happens from there, and contracting and the process of, sending out for bids and whatnot. I don't think the commission needs to get into the details of that. That's not what we're here for. I would like to at least get some input as to how other boards within the city deal with those types of issues.
So again, there are several ways to proceed. Chairman, you mentioned forming a subcommittee. We could debate this here. Another option would be for me to work with Associate Planner Clausen, who you met this evening, to create a draft statement or draft policy document specific to performance bonds outside of some of the other regulations that we've been discussing as a part of a regulation document update, and that it may be easier for us to try and incorporate the best practices from other communities and to get that feedback and input from other city departments, in particular the finance department, about how this would work, how the money would be held, how the escrow accounts would be set up, and that we can discuss some of the particulars of the language in that format, perhaps.
That would, to me, make a lot of sense and be most helpful.
Is there a time frame for working within the other adjustments that you're looking at for other boards to be approved by council?
There's no time frame for the regulations update that we've discussed here. It's simply a way to bring in items that are, have been standard practice for the commission into a more formal regulation document. There are standing regulations that are not collected in the same place, so both to collect standing regulations and to bring in a few new ones. I know that performance bonding and third-party reviewing are topics that the commission has discussed before as issues that it would really like to see movement on, to be able to use these tools that are legally at our disposal to assure projects are built to the specifications and an order of conditions and to the performance standards in the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah, I mean, for me, knowing how subcommittees go, I'd love to see a draft and skip the subcommittee process. And personally, I think the North Andover one looks great. It seems to address, it's a pretty complete picture compared to some of the other sets of text that we see from the other towns here.
The DEP will be happy to hear hear you say that the person I work with at DEP was formerly of the North Andover Conservation Commission, so.
Are there any further, comments on that? I mean, we're
I
discussing it.
reviewed the documents that Craig provided from other communities, and I could see us using any one of them because they're all pretty much the same, in the content.
All right, I suppose I'd like to have further discussions with Aaron Clausen and yourself regarding developing, and how would this be? Would this be part of the wetlands bylaw in the city? I mean, how would this be incorporated into, in us incorporating it into a action as far as under a Lowell standard order of conditions, either under the ordinance or under the act?
My understanding is it could go either way, actually. Within the ordinance, there could be a change to specifically address performance bonding as well as some of the other issues. But what seems to be more common practice, this is how it's done here in the planning board through their bylaws, and how a few of the other communities have done, is through a regulation document. Again, this is the update that I've been discussing, is creating a formal, an addendum really to the ordinance, which is specifics to how to move forward with the items outlined in the ordinance. So for example, the ordinance says you must submit if you're going to do such and such a work, the same jurisdictional areas, more or less as the Wetlands Protection Act with some enhancements. The regulation document, again, as some of my previous communications have said, could say we want 8 copies of this, 1 electronic. We want this to be presented in such a format as to be accessible to the general public. So the Wetlands Protection Act gives communities the ability to enact, well, let me say this differently. The ordinance that we have here for the city of Lowell gives the commission the ability to enact rules and regulations, which it has done in the past. From that, I think that although I know several of those are standing, I'd like to try and create a more formal document that is clearly accessible for others and that we can use that update process to try and bring in some of these other issues that have been discussed. So again, many communities that have a local ordinance or bylaw also have a regulation document that spells out how to meet the submission requirements, the performance standards as outlined in their ordinance. The Lowell's wetland ordinance, and this is something I've tried to explain before as far as how the process would work, gives the commission the ability to adopt rules and regulations to carry out its duty to protect the jurisdictional areas, following adoption formally with the commission and then adoption with the city council. That's a piece that goes back and forth as far as I can tell with different commissions. Some have the ability to promulgate their own rules and regulations through a public hearing and vote. Others require city council or selectmen approval.
All right. Then let's start, or at least what I'd like to do is perhaps we'll do a conference, either in person or a phone conference. And let's pick out the best parts of, what we can put together and what we'll mesh in and work with our own wetlands bylaw. And, and looking through this, obviously, they all work with the Wetlands Protection Act. And let's get something put together so we can go forward. And then, and then having a final, or at least a starting position, we can then open it up for discussion and comment and modification from the commission, and then perhaps have something to present to the, either by formal vote here or through the city council to incorporate it into the, into our rules and regulations.
Yeah, the advice I've been given is that to formally adopt a new policy document, it should be advertised as any other hearing here is advertised in the newspaper as well as on the agenda as a formal discussion, brought to a vote and then passed forward to the city council. If there is to be an update and a change, there's to be an update and adoption of a formal regulation document. That does not have to happen, but that seems to be the most straightforward way to address some of the issues that the commission has been discussing.
All right, and so let's get a working document then going. And you're saying that then by way of formal motion vote, we approve it to go to the city council, and then it would be meted out in front of them for, for their modifications, changes, and discussions.
Yeah, there will be other steps involved, obviously, and this process will not happen that quickly. But again, the information that I've passed along to you has been meant as a way to sort of start the conversation.
Well, let's get a working document going, something that we can discuss. I guess I can talk to you tomorrow, and perhaps we can set something up with Aaron and yourself and
Yeah, I can work
myself and anyone else who's interested, obviously.
It gets a little tricky as far as how many people can meet to discuss something for when it becomes an open meeting. So I want to make sure that we don't do something incorrect in that way, but I'll work to facilitate. Tomorrow I'll be in communication. We can work to facilitate whatever best fits the needs to move this forward and to think about how to get a draft of this going.
Well, it would just be a draft to get something, established to go forward. Right now, we've got a loose, collection of regulations and bylaws from other cities and towns. So let's put something together for Lowell and for the Lowell Conservation Commission, so at least we have something to discuss in detail, in particularity. So, all right, do I have is there any further discussion on that?
I'm wondering if the MACC might have some useful information. Have you,
Yeah, well, I mean, this is kind of, yeah, Luis, they do have stuff, but I think it's more general guidelines as to what we can do and should be looking to do. Because that's, I mean, what kicked this all off for me was reviewing some of the MACC guideline information.
they may have a collection of other towns as well, perhaps a city that would be more comparable to Lowell.
They actually do it. It's available online. I'd encourage you to go to their website. It's a little tricky to find, but they have a section for all of the cities and towns in the Commonwealth that have their own local bylaw or ordinance. They have copies of that online, and then there are also subsequent regulations attached to those which have formal regulations. I'm not sure if it's comprehensive, but it's at the very least a fair. It's at the very least a fair collection. And in a previous packet, I'd sent information about changes to, say, the request for determination fee or other items. That's where that information was drawn from, other regulations of what I thought considered to be sort of near neighbors for Lowell.
All right, I guess. All right, do I have a motion on the December 1st minutes?
Move to accept the minutes of December 1st.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion to accept the December 1st minutes? We need to move you more into the center, Bob. So-
My old ears don't hear too.
All right.
I think we ought to meet in the closet.
All right, well, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor to approve the December 1st minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Do I have we can sign those after adjournment? Yeah, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.